Good morning, and welcome to the Lone Star Weekly Business Hour. Your host, Rick Schissler, is a Silver Fox advisor who personally has over 40 years of experience as a serial entrepreneur. So sit back, pull out your pad and pencil, and get ready to take notes as we join Rick Schissler in his Lone Star Weekly Business Hour.
Well, good morning and welcome, and thank you for joining us for this week's edition of the Weekly Business Hour. This is Rick Schissler, your Silver Fox advisor and host of the Weekly Business Hour. Let's get started with today's show. We will start first with a thought for the week. Celebrate the 4th of July. Then a quick check-in with Dick on the business of Lone Star, and then Stephen Wong, co-owner of Stage Right, the resident players at the historic Crichton Theater, will join us. So sit back and get ready. Pull out your pad and pen, and let's get started. First, top of the list, be sure that if you have a question or a thought or a comment about the show, either during the show or at any time after the show, that you email me. You can reach me at Rick, R-I-C-K, at irlonestar.com. Let me know what you think, and I'd love to hear from you about any questions you have. Well, first, as promised, our thought for the week. Celebrate the 4th of July. Well, you're sitting there saying, okay, I celebrate the 4th of July. I take a day off, or I close my business for a day. Some of us will barbecue, some of us will go to a party, some of us will just take the time to sleep in. And I think that's all wonderful, and that's part of the celebration. But I'm talking about your business. Does your business celebrate the 4th of July? Is your business ready to celebrate the 4th of July? You say, well, why does my business need to celebrate? Well, let's face it, this is probably the biggest national holiday we celebrate in this country every year. It's a great opportunity to celebrate your business. It's a great opportunity to communicate to your employees, to your vendors, and most importantly to your customers that you're patriotic, that you care about what's going on in the nation. And you say, well, if I hang a flag out, what does that mean? Well, it's not just hanging the flag out. It's celebrating throughout the week and next week, and as long as you want to carry it on. Because if you watch the TV, they have 4th of July sales, seems like all the way to Labor Day. But the idea, I believe, that's most important is celebrate the 4th of July in the culture that you've developed in your company, amongst your people. Help your employees particularly, and customers and vendors, feel the real value, the real celebration of the 4th of July. Yes, you need to go out and get some red, white, and blue. You need to hang a few flags, maybe some bunting, as they call it. I see it around in different places. My basic question to you is, why not? Why not take this great opportunity that presents itself every year, this time of year in the summer? A lot of businesses slow down in the summer. Why not seize this opportunity to celebrate the 4th of July? You're in the right place if you're a business owner, manager, or you're considering starting your own business, because the Weekly Business Hour is where Montgomery County comes to talk about the latest in business news, ideas to improve your business, and to hear from some of our own local business leaders on how they have found success right here in Montgomery County. As a reminder to you, if you like the show and would like to stay up with the show each week with our podcast, then please go to Facebook and like us at the Weekly Business Hour page. That week, each week, you'll receive that week's show through Facebook. Now let's check on the business right here at Lone Star. Dick, what's on tap for Lone Star for the coming week?
I want to say a special happy birthday to the host of the Weekly Business Hour, Rick Schissler. His birthday was yesterday on Sunday, and I just want to say to all the audiences, we want to say a happy birthday to you, Rick. Here at Lone Star Community Radio, we're doing the best we can to serve Montgomery County, and hopefully coming up in the after the summer will be FM in July, and then we're adding more shows. So I want to tell people, if you want a show, we might be able to get you one. So contact us at the station at dick@irlonestar.com to talk more about details with me and on Lone Star Community Radio in Montgomery County.
Well, Dick, thanks for noting that. You know, it reminds me of that song, When I Get Older, Losing My Hair many years from now. Will you still be loving me and sending me a Valentine when I'm 64? So I found out what 64 was all about yesterday. And today I was reminded by somebody I really love and care about, my wife, that it's only 364 days till I'm 65. So hang in there, folks. It all works. It's great to get older and use the experience that we pick up through life. Well, let's get back to business here on the Weekly Business Hour. We have a wonderful guest in the studio today, someone who is creative but also in business. And I think that's an interesting combination, whatever your business is. Stephen Wong, the co-owner of Stage Right. Welcome to the Weekly Business Hour.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm glad you've taken the time, Stephen, to come in and talk to us about the business of running a theater company. I want to learn more about what you do, and I think people will be interested to hear some of the business challenges you have. Give us a little bit of background to start off on yourself, your personal business background, if you would.
Let's see. I'm an engineer, so obviously engineers think differently than artistic types and things like that, but my wife was always in the theater, and I've done theater since I was 12. And so when we were dating, and I was still working on my PhD, and Carolyn was doing theater, I'd come home at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning after studying hard, and my wife wouldn't be there, and I'd call up and say, "Hey, where are you?" She says, "I'm working on set." And I was a theater widow. That's what we call us. And so if you wanted to see your spouse, you had to do theater. So that's what we did. So it started many years when we were at A&M. And we've been doing that ever since.
So you gave up a life as a theater widow. I'd never heard that term. I think that's great. Widower, maybe, might be more appropriate, generic, but correct. And so you joined the theater.
Well, we started doing things in theater, right?
Okay.
I mean, I've acted before, but most of the guys like doing things behind the scenes. And so if I wanted to see my wife, that meant I did concessions, I built set, painted, whatever. Right? At least you could be together. And it's a nice thing to do together. You meet a lot of interesting people, and Carolyn being a scientist and then myself being an engineer, you meet a lot of people that think differently than you. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. If you allow your values to be challenged once in a while and enriched. Nothing else.
That sounds like a wonderful life. I have to ask you the obvious question, though.
Yeah.
Did you give up being an engineer?
Oh, absolutely not. Both Carolyn and I also have a for-profit company called TSF. We do consulting, and we still continue to do that. Although, obviously, because of oil and gas business now, we've had a pretty big downturn. So it's tough. But it's been tough in the oil industry anyway. So that's the way it goes.
Well, there's no doubt about that. Well, that's really interesting. Tell us about Stage Right.
Okay.
What is it? What business are you really in?
So we were obviously in the theater space, and we started in the downturn of 2008. The Crichton Theater needed a resident theater company, and we were waiting for somebody to come along, and nobody came along. And we decided, oh, heck, we'll do it. We'll put on a show. Had our first audition. Nobody shows up. That's the first big rude awakening. There are a lot of myths about theater. Number one, especially most of them tend to be nonprofits. And as my friend Craig likes to say, nonprofit is not a business model, it's a tax designation. And that's rule number one. You're still a business, and you still have to make money. And I know most theater folks don't like to think about it that way, but it is what it is. And it's not just theater. It's all nonprofits. It's all business, right? You have to make money or you're out of business. It's that simple. My father-in-law used to say he wished tax codes were simpler such that it didn't encourage playing games with bookkeeping. If you made more money than you spent, that should be a good thing. And if you didn't, it was a bad thing. And it should be that simple. But unfortunately, our tax code isn't that simple. Anyway, so like I said, we're in the theater space. And no one was going to come to the Crichton, become their resident theater company. And people don't realize it, that most buildings, like the Crichton, they take a lot of money to run. And most of that money doesn't come from the big-name stars. The reputation comes from big-name stars. But the bulk of the revenue comes from resident companies, the children's groups, the community theaters, or whatever the resident theaters of that place happen to be. That's where the bulk of the revenue comes from. So when people say, well, why can't I get a certain date at the Crichton? That's because where the bulk of the revenue comes from, they need to be able to set the schedule. Because that's right. Why would you let some group that only does maybe one or two things a year set the schedule? It doesn't make sense, right, from a business sense. So where does your money come from? Who is your audience? All these kind of questions that are similar to any business. Who is your audience? What's your target audience? How are you going to attract them to your business? What is it that you do that's differential from other people? Can you do this in a cooperative way with other businesses? Absolutely. So, yeah, we're a business, and people don't like to think of it that way, but it is what it is.
Well, you make a great point. First, back to the nonprofit, and that's something that you and I in another discussion are involved in through the Conroe Chamber.
Absolutely, yes.
But the idea is that a nonprofit is a business, just like you said it
Absolutely.
so well. And so many people miss that, not only in nonprofit, but those of us who are in for-profit.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And your father-in-law stated it well. It's a tax code thing, but the idea is every business has to run like a business in many aspects, perhaps until you do the tax return and you put for-profit or nonprofit, right?
Right.
So it's got to run day to day. Well, let's talk about that. Now, Stage Right is a theater company?
That's correct.
Okay, and so you put on shows throughout the year at the Crichton. Is that correct?
Right. So we've been doing 5 shows a year. We're going to 6 shows a year next year. We also have a kids group that's associated. And most people, if you look at most theaters, you'll find that they almost always have a kids group associated with them. And it's not because that's where the money is made, although for many theater groups that's true. A lot of their money is made through the kids group. It has to do with the nonprofit designations. There's 5 major designations that allow you to be a nonprofit. Most of them don't apply to a theater. The only one that applies is the educational group. Well, that means you have to have an educational component to your nonprofit. Now, there are others. There's scientific, but it's pretty hard to come by. Obviously, there's a political, and there's 2 other designations. But the key one that works for theater groups mostly is educational. So what is your educational component? If you don't have it, you don't get to keep your status. Obviously, if you don't file, you don't get to keep your status. But the big thing is having the educational component.
So you're in the business of educating.
That is correct.
You're
Yes.
educators.
We
I love
entertain,
that.
But we also educate.
Well, let me ask you kind of to get that discussion, and we'll probably carry over into our next
Sure.
segment. What are the keys to success in running your theater company?
Again, this is just me talking, but the key to success, you got to know your core business. And what is it that we do? Okay, we provide entertainment. Now, a lot of times people have said, well, why don't you do certain shows? Okay, they want to see edgier. And I get that. If you're an actor, you want to do things that you haven't done before. But this is back to the audience. The audience tells you what they want, because if they don't like it, they're not going to come. And then since we're in the entertainment space, we have to entertain. And especially in the area that we're in the Conroe area, we're a very conservative community. There's nothing wrong with that. But that also means there's certain things we just can't do. And that's the way it is. Okay? If you're in business and your patrons say, I want to see this, then guess what? That's what you're going to give them. Otherwise, you're not going to be successful because you're not listening to your patrons.
Well, and you make a great point. That is one of the keys to being successful in any business.
Yes.
Is you've got to have a product, service. You've got to deliver what people are looking for.
Absolutely.
And if you don't, right, you're out of business.
That's right.
There's no doubt about it. Well, I never thought about theater in that way. I always thought it was an artistic thing that you decided. Maybe that's why I've seen some bad theater. I don't know.
Well, there's a lot of reasons for that, but we won't go into that. You can't have that artistic component. There's no question about it. We want to do this. We want to explore this topic. Okay, whatever it may be. Maybe there's something that's at the top of the list, whatever that happens to be. But at the end of the day, patrons don't want to see it. It doesn't matter whether you want to put it on or if it's good or not. That's another myth of theater. People say if they put on good theater, people will come, and that's not right. If they think they will be entertained, even if that means they will cry at it, and they want that, then they will come. But just because you have a good show doesn't mean people will come.
Well, Stephen, I appreciate that education. Ladies and gentlemen, we're against a break right now. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to learn a little bit more about the business of operating a theater group and also being in a partnership with your spouse. So please stay with us. We'll be right back with you.
Tailorized PR works exclusively to get your business noticed. Public relations is how others perceive you and your company. By tailorizing the marketing strategy exclusively to your business, your story is told. Tailorized PR services include networking, social media, blogs, press releases, public appearances, and event planning. To learn about Tailorized PR, call Margie Taylor at 936-828-6881 or visit the website at tailorizedpr.com. My business is tailored to yours.
You are listening to the Weekly Business Hour, and this is Rick Schissler, Silver Fox Advisor and the host of the Weekly Business Hour. Before we get started talking with Stephen a little bit, I would like to remind you that Lone Star Community Radio will also be available soon on FM 104.5 and 106.1 on your radio dial. We'll be offering you, the listener, both a tune-in and internet radio station. Well, back to our guest, Stephen Wong. co-owner of Stage Right, a theater group. This has been real interesting so far, Stephen, the business of running a theater group. As we finished up the last segment, I mentioned you have a partner, and you've mentioned Carolyn. You met at A&M, and that she's a scientist, but together you run this business. How does that relationship work?
Well, I said, she's certainly the better half, and the good news is that we complement each other. When I freak out, she's calm, and when she freaks out, I'm the one that's calm. So it works. It's perfectly. Living theater day and night, it's like in any other business. Sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes you just want some space apart. But I couldn't do it without her. And the odd thing, she's always been in love with theater from junior high and high school days. I've done it myself. I wouldn't say I'm in love with it, but I enjoy doing it. I enjoy meeting the people in the business. It is certainly a people business. There's no question about it. So, except we do everything. And like in a small business, we have to do marketing. We do the PR. We do, you name it, we have to do it. She's doing music right now, Legally Blonde. I'm doing lights. You have to learn everything, just like in a small business. And what you can't do, you outsource, although sometimes you don't have the money to do that, or the time to train someone in the way you want things done. So,
well, it's interesting to me, and through my life's experience in working with my clients as a Silver Fox advisor, partnerships in and of themselves can be a challenge. My experience have been, I've had the good and the bad, and I think I know what a good one looks like, and I agree with you. It expands the opportunity, so to speak. Working with a spouse, though, is a subset of that, and to me, almost a different thing, because having your spouse living, like you mentioned, and then working, and now you're in a business that requires, I believe, a great deal of passion, long hours. It really pushes the envelope. What are the keys to having a successful partnership in a business, in your opinion?
And it's true. It's not just in theater or any people-oriented business, but you have to decide who's going to, like I said, this is your decision, and just be fine with that. And it needs to go both ways, okay? And sometimes some things have to be joint, certainly, but if everything is joint, it makes it difficult to get anything done, and then you can start getting into tussles. And so you just got to say, okay, it's your call. I'm fine with it, and go. So there has to be a division of labor, true in small businesses as well as large. If it's just one person, obviously there's pretty simple division of labor. It's just you gets to do it. But when you have different folks that you have to work with, and especially partner, and Carolyn's not the only partner, obviously, major partner because she's the artistic director, but we have a lot of our partners which are on the board. And communication is a big deal. And it's true of any business. Communication internally and communication with your patrons or customers, very important. And there are plenty of myths that go along with communication. Just because I sent you an email doesn't mean I communicated with you. That it's a fallacy. And that's true of text or whatever, social media, whatever method you want to talk or try to have an interaction with, whether it's your patron, the people within your business or so.
Well, you make a great point on communication. That's one of my pet peeves, if you will, about how we communicate with one another. And I'm not saying I have a preference.
Right.
I have clients who, when a new customer comes on board, if it's going to be a repetitive situation, they will actually ask the client, how would you like, what method?
Exactly, yes.
Now, that's great, and I encourage that. But, when we communicate with people, not only with words, but in text and all the other things, I find people just don't take time. We used to criticize, well, you didn't think about it before you said it.
Right.
Well, I think the same thing is true, if not more so, in the writing, particularly text, is we don't take time to say, okay, this person's going to receive this. Are they going to understand what I'm trying to achieve?
It's true. Once we went to any kind of written, and I don't mean letters, but shorter forms of communication, email, text, they take on a tone of their own that may not have the intent that you wanted. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. And sometimes people read into them things that aren't there. I remember an email when I was at Arco. Someone sent me an email, and it made me mad. So you know what? I decided to outsource that work. And the person who read that same email said, he made 4 points, and he pissed me off on every point. But when I met the guy, he was the nicest guy that you would ever meet. That we had read something into that note that wasn't there. obviously. And although the Brits can do that very easily too. So again, you have to be careful. How is the message received the way you intend it to be received?
Right. Now, I got to ask you this question, and it's a loaded question.
Right.
You'd say,
Yeah.
Is that more of a challenge when working with your spouse and communicating with them than, say, an outsider?
I don't think so. I think it's true at any time. The problem is just because you've been working in close quarters, okay, maybe some other things maybe surface that you might not allow to surface. When we communicate with others, there tends to be somewhat of a control, right? You have an external facing persona, if you will, versus an internal, meaning you let your guard down. And so when you're with your spouse or your significant other, maybe you tend to let that guard down a little more when maybe you should just guard what you say a little
or
better.
Treat it as arm's length.
Or let arm's length, let it pass, whatever. But it's true in business too. If you have a business partner there, even if they're not your spouse, they essentially become like a marriage, like a spouse, right?
Right.
And you can get into all kinds of arguments or on maybe the smallest things that if you had let things just sit a while, maybe it would be better. If someone sends you something and you're angry and you want to respond with an angry email, probably you ought to just let it sit for a while before you hit the send button, because you may not want to do that.
Well, it's funny because in the electronic age, we have a tendency to hit the button.
Exactly.
And I was taught by a mentor many, many years ago that if I was upset back then, it was letters.
Yes.
Write the letter, then put it in the drawer.
Exactly.
And wait till the next day. But today, it's so easy to hit send.
And you can't take it back.
And it's gone.
Nope.
And they've made some pretty funny movies about that as well.
Of course, yes.
Well, let me ask you something. I mean, you chose in the stage right business to be a nonprofit.
Yes.
In your opinion, what are some of the advantages in that kind of business, or in general, based on making that decision to be a nonprofit?
Well, it's not simple. Like, it can be simple. Ours was simple in the sense that we are a nonprofit because we want to be a public charity. Okay, so that means all our books are open. We are providing a service to the community. That's not to say you can't provide a service to the community as a for-profit, but you certainly have different things, and of course, there's tax consequences, of course. But you can be a very successful nonprofit, and you can make a lot of money as a nonprofit. American Red Cross, if you can get paid pretty well if you're working for the American Red Cross if you're at the top of the echelon. And it's true of a lot of nonprofits. So again, it's back to what is your intent. But certainly you can be a for-profit business and do plenty of good in the community.
Well, it's interesting in coming down to the choice of business entity, because, when every business starts,
right,
you make a choice. And
sure,
typically, I'm going to incorporate, I'm an LLC, whatever. But nonprofit is a choice as well.
Yes.
So there's no doubt about that. Well, let me ask you, as we kind of wind down our time today, what are the future plans for Stage Right? I mean, what kind of growth plans do you foresee?
Well, we just bought property in downtown Conroe. The intent is to build a storage rehearsal facility so that we can do more of our rehearsals there. That will allow the Crichton to do more programming. So that's our big, probably in the next 5 years, is to build that storage rehearsal facility. It'll probably cost on the order of $500,000 plus or minus some, so there's obviously some fundraising involved. But that's the big one. And hopefully we can expand our programming by doing that as well.
Well, that sounds interesting. And the expansion of programming. For folks that don't maybe listening are not familiar with the Crichton, can you give us a 30-second commercial on
Sure.
why they need to come to the Crichton?
Oh, absolutely. The Crichton was built in 34-35 for vaudeville, although vaudeville was already dead by the time it came around. It's an 80-year-old historic theater. There are not many like that around the United States. In fact, when we have a lot of people come to the Crichton, they fall in love with it. Does it need help, and care? Absolutely, it does. But there aren't many of these buildings left. That's not old in a European sense, but in a U.S. sense, yes. And they're historic treasures. The architecture is a lesson in itself, just from a historical perspective. Yeah. In fact, when we go on vacations, we go to see theater. We want to see how they do it. We want to see the building. We want to learn all about the history of it. It's fascinating. So they need to come to the Crichton. We get people that are famous like Vince Gill. We just had Pam Tillis there, Sleep at the Wheel. So we have big-name acts that come. But at the same time, we have children's groups like CYT, our own Bravo company. We have our own community theater. And then there are other people that do one-off concerts at the Crichton. So we get about 30 to 35,000 people a year at the Crichton, and you just need to come and see what it's about. We call it our Turn Left campaign. You don't have to go downtown Houston to see nice entertainment, and you don't have to worry about the parking or the drive. Just turn left, come to Conroe.
Well, that's interesting. I think it's a wonderful treasure and a wonderful reason, among many, to visit Conroe. Well, as we wind her down for today, Stephen, please tell us about what you have, Stage Right. If people are interested in getting involved or knowing more about it, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Well, just go on the website, www.stage-right.org. You may actually find 3 different websites, and there's all different kinds of information. There's podcasts, posters, videos, and if you're interested in volunteering, just fill out the form, and we'll get back to you.
Well, I deeply appreciate, again, you taking time to join us here on our little stage at the Weekly Business Hour. Very intriguing business that you're in, and it sounds like you and I discussed prior, it's another business.
Absolutely.
And it's got to be run as such to be successful and stay in business. Stephen Wong, thank you for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our break at the bottom of the hour. And when we come back, I'm going to give you hopefully a little bit of news and ideas that you can use in your business today.
Are you planning on growing, expanding, or possibly selling your business? All of these business opportunities require developing strategies and setting goals in order to achieve success. Providing specialized consulting in these and other key business decisions is what Silver Fox Advisors have been doing since 1986. Let us help you today. Call us at 713-343-3718. It might be the most profitable call that you ever make.
Running a business is hard. Pressure to maximize profits and minimize loss continue to grow. Schooley Mitchell of Houston can help. Their independent consultants will ensure you are receiving the best communications and credit card processing services at the best prices. Most importantly, their services are completely risk-free. If they don't find savings for you, there is no fee. Contact Schooley Mitchell of Houston today to find out. Call 832-314-1815 or visit their website at schooleymitchell.com/JM Polio.
This is Rick Schissler, your Silver Fox advisor and host of the Weekly Business Hour. Appreciate you joining us. I appreciate, again, Steve Wong coming in from Stage Right and talking to us about the business of running a theater company. Very interesting discussion, in my opinion, this morning. This is the segment of the show where we talk about news and ideas you can use. And the first thing I'd like to touch on today briefly, 4 tips to help you stop stealing your own time. Time management has been around forever. There's lots of discussions, seminars, tips, and things that are out there. But from time to time, I think it's good for all of us to be reminded, stop for just a minute, take a look at something. And this was some new ideas, or at least new for me, that came by that I picked up in an article that I read last week entitled 4 Tips to Help You Stop Stealing Your Own Time. How about that? Obviously, the key is we need to stop procrastinating. One of the things I've learned with my time is procrastination doesn't necessarily mean that I get up and go do something else, or doesn't mean that I fall back in the chair and daydream, or that I go on the computer and look at Facebook or whatever. It can be the tiny minutes or seconds between things where I just sort of stop and I lose track and something draws my attention away. You know, they say, and it's been true for years, I've read it multiple times, that every time you're distracted, it takes you about 15 minutes to really get your head back into working on a serious piece of work. And that's 15 minutes of procrastination in a roundabout way. But let me give you these tips real quick because I think they're good. First of all, be sure you plan each day intentionally. Well, you know, that's something I do. I have a list of things to do. And the point here by the author was not just have a list of things to do, but make sure that you have projects, things that keep you focused on your goals, whether they be personal or they be in your business. Most importantly, stay focused and make sure these are just not to-do lists. Go to the dry cleaner, talk to Sam about this or that in the business. Make sure that when you put something down and you start the day intentionally, that you know really what your objectives are that day. Not just completing to-do list, but moving the ball forward, if you will, in sustaining, growing your business. Make sure you think through that. And if you can build that habit and stay ahead of it, then each day you will get more important work done. Keep track of your progress throughout the day. Now, that doesn't mean checking yourself every minute or every hour, but the fact is, if you've written down one of your objectives for the day, you accomplish it, you take it off the list, right? Great feeling, great feeling. But make sure that you stay on track during the day. And again, I think this is a habit that can be formed and built, but you've got to practice it like any habit. Take note of days and times of the day where you maybe don't get a lot of work done. See what it is that distracts you and try to change those things. I have a client that we came up with an idea of hanging a sign on his door, "Do Not Disturb," because he needed time throughout the day to do some work, to work on the work product of his practice. And he struggles with that. But the idea is you say, "Do not disturb." Well, I think part of what he struggles with perhaps is the fact that he's got to get it clear in his mind. I've always had this open door 24/7 because I want to help people immediately. But now I really need to spend some time working on issues that I need 100% quiet time, so to speak, so I can stay focused. These are the kind of things you have to identify for yourself. They're unique to each individual. Third thing is treat yourself like an employee, not the boss. This is one that I'd not seen before, and I think it's fantastic. In other words, what would you expect an employee to accomplish in their work? How much work would you expect them to do? How far into the goal would you expect them to be? Think about that as yourself. You're an employee, and at the end of the day, the end of the week, the end of the month, whatever, where would you expect an employee to be on the task that you're responsible for? Very, very interesting to meet your own standards. Fourth and last, work even when you don't feel like it. To me, this is a given. There are times when we feel, in fact, there's even things out there that encourage us to break away from work, do things for ourselves, take time off. You got to be careful because you can end up developing a habit, if you will, where you just sort of bounce around a little bit. And again, procrastination creeps in. And eventually the bouncing around or taking the walk or clearing your head becomes something you do all the time. And when you add up the time you've lost, stay focused on your business. Stay focused on your own goals for your business and where you want to be. And make sure that you don't get in a habit that leads to bad habits and stands in the way of your success. Second item, local news. Today in the news, and in fact even this weekend, it was noted that 3 of our county officials, our county judge and 2 commissioners, have been indicted for violation of the Open Meeting Act here in Texas. Now, I'm not going to get into the politics of that because I'm sure they're in there somewhere. But the point is, stay in touch with what's happening in your government. You know, on one side of that equation, some drastic things may happen. And it involves apparently a situation where we had our road bond issue came up last fall, and some of the things were done or not done, depending on how you look at it. But the fact is that now our county government is a little bit hobbled because 3 of our most important officials have been indicted. It's important as a business person and individually that you stay in tune with these issues, not rush to judgment of whether guilty or not guilty. But they run part of our local government, and I contend that local government is much more important than even state or national government on what happens to us day to day and the success of our business. So stay in touch. Also, we had an election this past Saturday in Conroe. We have a new mayor, Toby Powell, and a councilman, Dwayne Ham. Congratulations to them. These are the kind of things I find business people disassociate themselves with. They not only don't vote, but they're not aware of the change in government. Generally, what I'm trying to do is encourage you to stay in touch with the government. Pay attention to what's going on. It doesn't need to dominate your life. I'm not asking you to go to every council meeting, but be aware of who's been elected and be able to make that judgment when election time comes around, an informed judgment on whether these people have truly represented you and the community and doing the things that you feel are important. The third thing, is our economy headed for a bust? Well, boy, the weekend news and this morning's news dominated by what they call Brexit, where the country of Great Britain has decided to leave the European Union. And boy, if you read some of the articles and listen to some of the pundits, you basically want to climb under your bed and just hide, because it's just coming home to roost for everybody throughout the world. I think there's a lot of bunk in that. But the reality is that our economy has not been growing here in the United States at a rate that really is sustainable to help our country grow as a rule of thumb. So it's important that we stay in touch. But what's really important, if we're going to be impacted, if our government is going to be impacted by anything that happens in the economy, then we're going to need to be sure that our business is in the best situation. So there are three things I encourage you to do. Diversify your client base. Be sure that you have a variety of clients. It's very important, so that if one of the clients, two of the clients that are important to you, or just lesser clients, does have problems, that the economy does affect them, you've got others to fall back on, that you can continue to grow your business. The same thing is true for your supply base. Too many times I've seen it in business where you buy products or even outsource services to one company and you're with them year in, year out. You've got a relationship. And in my opinion, and I'll use the word, you get lazy. You need to always be looking for new relationships. Again, this doesn't mean every day, every week, but you need to be involved as such that in groups, or you need to entertain people when they come by and offer to sell you something on your time, on your terms, but make sure your supply base is diversified so that if the supplier gets in trouble, that the economy, if something happens to their business, particularly if their business is located out of your geographical area. So many times we buy products not just overseas, but on the other side of the country, and we think, well, the economy here is good, but we don't realize what's happening on the other side of the world, the other side of the country. So diversify your supply. And the third thing, and something I encourage people all the time anyway, tighten up your terms. Make sure the terms that you sell to people under are terms you can live with. Make sure not only that your collections are taking place, and as I talked a little bit last week about accounts receivables and collections, make sure those things are happening in an orderly manner, and make sure your terms are being met. Monitor your accounts receivable. Very important. The last thing I'd like to touch on is online lending. We've talked about that on this show. A lot of small business, and the numbers are just unbelievable in the growth that's happening, where we can go online. There's a variety of lenders, and we can borrow funds to use to improve our businesses, to buy equipment, to grow our business, all kinds of things that we can do. So it's very important that this online lending, almost $2 billion in loans already, particularly in a time when banks, particularly over the last 5+ years, have tightened terms, have made it difficult, in my opinion, for small businesses. And for businesses that are just starting out, it's almost impossible to borrow money through the normal channels, the banking channels. But I saw an article over the weekend in the Wall Street Journal that said, well, now that these lenders are out there and they're showing some success, that's my perspective, then the government, the federal government, wants to get involved to, quote unquote, protect us. Well, there's probably some things going on that shouldn't go on, but small businesses need to be protected against predatory lending practices. I'm making you aware of this because I'm going to ask a favor for anybody that has done online lending, gone on and used the advantages to their benefit to borrow money online, to send me an email and let me know what their experience is. Just a quick summary, because I think this is an important source of financing for particularly small and new businesses, and we need to be aware of it. I want to track this and report back to you, because I sure would hate the government to come in and make it so onerous that the good guys, the good online lenders, are forced to raise their rates, increase the cost of lending to you, the borrower. So if you've used this type of service, let me know. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of Ideas and News You Can Use. We're going to take our final break for the day, and when we come back, I'm going to offer you a Silver Fox Thought of the Week. Please stay with us.
Are you paying too much for your personal or business insurance? Patricia Cooper Insurance on FM 1488 and Tamina Road is an independent agency that can shop multiple carriers to find the best rates and coverages to fit your specific needs. Call us today at 281-356-9955 and let us go to work for you. Patricia Cooper Insurance, where our customers are treated like family.
You're listening to the Weekly Business Hour, and this is Rick Schissler, Silver Fox Advisor, and your host. We're still, at this point, we're going into the final segment of the show today, and this is where I like to give you a basic thought, Silver Fox Advisor tip of the week. But before we do that, I want to remind you once again, please contact me if you have a question or comment about the show at rick@irlonestar.com. And if you enjoy the show, please like us on Facebook at the Weekly Business Hour. Now let's get into the Silver Fox Advisor tip of the week. To sell or not to sell. You know, at the end of a business, two things happen typically. One is the business just closes down, or the business is sold or passed on to someone else. Now the first one, closing the business, happens a lot more often than you might think. Many times business owners just don't think about what they're going to do when it's time to, as I call it, exit the business. So they don't prepare for it, or they have a personal service business that totally relies on their ability and just really don't have a lot to sell in their mind. And what I'd like to do today is take 5-6 minutes and talk to you about selling your business and what you need to ask yourself. I was reading an article recently by Norm Brodsky. Norm writes an article in each edition, typically, of Inc. magazine. And last November, he wrote an article about preparing to sell your business. Well, my philosophy, and if you've listened to the show before, is that your exit or sale of the business, and again, it's your exit, which again, you may decide not to sell, but focus today on selling the business, starts the day you open the business if you do it right. That you give some thought as you put your business plan together, whatever that plan may look like, is what are my objectives when I am ready to leave this business, retire from this business. And I think it's important that you think about that and establish those three questions, answer to the three questions. When do I want to do it? How much money do I expect to get? And to who am I going to sell the business, meaning a class, a general group of people, or perhaps a family member. You got to do that when you start. And if you don't, you're not going to ever, in my opinion, or rarely, I should say, maximize the return you should have gotten when you sell the business. Two things that Norm mentioned in his article that seem very important to me is that when you talk about selling your business or building your business, more in fact, is always build a business to last forever. Now, again, I realize today's world, things kind of come and go, and some people are kind of hitting it quick, going to get rich quick, whatever their motivation is, and they don't build a business to last. But I think that's wonderful advice. When you start to build your small business, try to build it as a business that will last forever. Don't take shortcuts that could cause your business the pain or even failure. Do what's best for the business itself in the long term. And two, build a business that can be sold for as much money as possible. Build a business that can be sold for as much money as possible, even if selling is not part of your plan. And I think that's, again, wise advice, because this forces you into what we call best practices. This forces you to do what's right for the business. And one of the things that you have to be careful of, I believe, if you really do intend to sell the business, is minimize what you take out of the business when you have alternatives within the business to leave the money and use the money to build the business. So many times people will build a business, it becomes a quote-unquote cash cow. They pull as much as they can out, not thinking about the future growth of the business, the future needs for money in the business, and all of a sudden the business is not worth as much, or perhaps you can't borrow what you need to buy that piece of equipment or buy out a competitor. Some of those opportunities that come along, they need money in the business as well as oftentimes outside financing, but that financing to a certain extent is dictated by what kind of equity, what kind of money you have in the business. Quick story, though, about the fact when it comes to the point and the idea that you want to sell the business. If you've spent a lifetime of pulling money out of your business and living in the business. And when I talk about living in the business, I'm talking about not only the compensation or distribution of profits, but also the car, the travel, all the business expenses that you have in the business. There are many examples I've seen where when you take the straight up compensation, meaning what you pay yourself, your bonuses and whatnot, you can almost double it to cover the other expenses that the business pays for, such as travel, such as cars and other benefits, retirement benefits and whatnot that come out of the business. So that when you go to sell the business, you value the business and say it's worth $1 million. But when you value or take into account what you've been taking out of the business, say it's $250,000 a year. Now you're going to sell that business for $1 million. And after taxes and debt that you may owe, say you end up with $750,000, maybe less. And then you invest that, and maybe you make 5% on that money. That's going to replace the $250,000 that you've been taking out of the business every year to cover expenses as well as compensation? I don't think so. And this is an equation, quite frankly, that I see so many people have to face 10, 20, 30 years down the road. They don't prepare themselves to sell their business. They've gotten used to a lifestyle built on taking everything they could out of the business. The bottom line is, where are they left? Where are you left in that example? Well, it may make more sense to you to continue to operate the business and look for people that can run the business so you can pull back some, enjoy your time, but continue to draw most, if not all, your compensation and business expenses. And that's where I find a lot of people today. They can't sell the business because they can't afford to, but they continue to operate the business, and that is an option. So keep that in mind. When you get to the end of the line, if you haven't prepared and you're in a situation, if you've got a good business, continue to operate it, but give yourself time off. Take time to enjoy your life, but continue to own your business. I encourage you to visit our website at irlonestar.com to stay up on everything that's happening in Montgomery County. As we close the show today, I want to give a big Lone Star thanks to our sponsors, Patricia Cooper Insurance, Schooley Mitchell, Taylorized PR, and the Silver Fox Advisors. Please put a note on your calendar to join us again next Monday at 11 o'clock right here on IR Lone Star. And remember, you too can be a sponsor of the Weekly Business Hour. Contact me at rick@irlonestar.com for the details. Look for the podcast of today's show on the Weekly Hour Facebook page or at irlonestar.com later in the week. Until then, stay engaged this week and keep your focus on what counts in your business.
Thanks for checking out this production on Lone Star Community Radio, Montgomery County's radio station. For more information on this show and other shows on Lone Star, check us out online at irlonestar.com. If you're interested in sponsoring a program on Lone Star Community Radio and reaching the local audience of Montgomery County on FM, internet, and TV media, please call 936-647-5747 or contact us online at irlonestar.com. This recording is a Lone Star Community Radio production, produced by the show host and Dick Schissler of Lone Star Community Radio. Interested in volunteering as a music DJ or starting your own talk show? Contact Dick Schissler at dick@irlonestar.com or by phone at 936-647-5747.